My heart bleeds to think of all the innocent people that were killed, never mind the combatants, but the innocent people. And I think about the legacies lost. I think if all the people that were killed in the war had survived, had families, they had families, how many world leaders and geniuses and workers that would be alive today.
In a normal year, we would see a large gathering of people here coming out. As a matter of fact, what we've seen over the years is the numbers are actually growing instead of going the other way. So this whole idea of having a Remembrance Day ceremony is so important to have people give the opportunity to let them know that the veterans and all these sacrifices not forgotten.
So in front of me here is the 1949 Ladies Auxiliary Memorial Wall Clock in honor of their 9 sons who paid the supreme sacrifice in World War II. And although it's difficult for people to see from a distance, when you get up close, on the brass portion down below is the name of the 9 sons. All people who were born and raised in Barrie or came here at an early age and lived in the city. They went to public schools, they went to the Barrie Collegiate at the time, and then joined either the Army or the Air Force. So there are 9 names inscribed in the brass part just below the clock face. Eldred Hadden, who was with the RAF 156 Squadron, who was killed at the age of 20. He had taken part in several raids over Germany. We also have a gentleman named Len Gosney. Len was a pilot officer, served with the 207 RAF Squadron, and he was killed on his first mission, January 2, 1944, in a bombing raid over the Berlin area. He's buried in a cemetery in Berlin, age 21. Royal Smith, Joseph Smith, he was a pilot officer, served with the 106 RAF Squadron, and he was killed on May 10, 1944 in a bombing raid over France, just prior to the June 6, 1944 D-Day invasion. Flight Sergeant Dalton Morgan Corbett was killed in action on June 25, 1944. He was flying in a bomber, Halifax, that had taken off from Algeria that was on a secret special operations mission that was taking place down in the southern part of France. The aircraft crashed about 1 a.m. in the morning, and all the crew were killed. The next soldier is Sergeant George Andrew Jones. George was killed in action on the 4th of July, 1944, at the age of 21. He was training to be an air gunner in a Wellington plane in England when the engines failed and there were no survivors, a crew of 7 all Canadian men killed in that. Private George Frederick Charlton Lindsay, who went by the name Charlton, was killed in action on August 4, 1944, while serving with the South Saskatchewan Regiment, an infantry regiment in France, just about 2 months after the June 6 D-Day invasion. Sergeant Eric Walter Buchanan is one individual that we don't have a photograph for out of the 9 men here. We're continuing to hope that we will find one. He was killed at the Gothic line, an area where Canadians were fighting in Italy on September 1st, 1944, while serving with the 4th Princess Louise Dragoon Guards. He was born in Barrie in 1912. Lance Corporal Norman Wines, who was killed in action on October 29, 1944 in Holland when he was involved on a raid. He was serving with the Royal Highland Black Watch Regiment. He's buried in Bergen-op-Zoom, the Canadian War Cemetery in the Netherlands. And the last soldier that we have here is Lieutenant Norman Octavius Hooper, who was killed on February 28, 1945, in a tank battle that was taking place on the borders of Holland and Germany. He was born in Allendale in 1914. He had enlisted with the Grand Simcoe Foresters in 1940, and then he went on, because he had worked for the Barrie Examiner, he was taken on as part of the public relations out of the East Coast, and eventually did come back into service, and as I have indicated, he was killed in 1945.
Well, it all started when I was called up into the Air Force, and after your basic training, I went and did my medical training, and I got past my exams. And then when you were past your exams, you went on to different airfields where they had station sick quarters. And at the station sick quarters, you had a doctor in charge, and then a small staff of maybe 10 or 11 medics. And we looked after the well-being of the camp or the airfield.
I was 7 years old when the war ended. I remember the bombing and the rationing, and the biggest thing I remember is the men coming home when I was 8 or 9 years old after the war, especially the ones that had been prisoners. They were in pretty rough shape.
Other times we were taking the doctor around in his rounds in an ambulance, driving the ambulance. And we had in the station sick quarters, we were taught to sterilize the equipment and needles. There was no package of needles in these days. You had to sharpen them, and you had to sterilize them and keep them up, keep them clean.
Oh, well, I certainly learned discipline, of course. Comradeship, I think, was the biggest thing. Made lots of friends. I got stationed in Gosport near Portsmouth, which is a big naval base, of course.
Yes.
And we used to take the ferry across. It wasn't very far. I don't know, 500 yards, something like that. Because there was more fun in Portsmouth than there was in Gosport. But the ferry quit at 10 o'clock.
Uh-oh.
So if you missed the last ferry, there was
Well, you were
a rowboat.
Oh.
So he's rowing us across, and there's a destroyer coming down.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hey, row, row. I thought I was going to die that night.
No life jackets.
No. They were pretty well liquored up, too.
Initially, I thought I was going on a holiday. Believe it or not. Here I am, a young 18-year-old saying they're going to send me to Egypt. They're sending me on a holiday. I get to see the pyramids, I go to the desert, this is cool. But what happened was my whole mindset was totally changed on the day I landed in Cairo. When I got to Cairo on the plane, they told us to stay in our seats. And there was a good reason for that. I looked out the window, and in a conveyor belt, there was a coffin being put into the aircraft, and it was a Canadian soldier who had lost his life on the same mission I was going on. Totally changed my whole mindset about why I was there. So this is not a holiday, this is for real.
Canadian peacekeepers have served on every continent except Antarctica, Africa, Asia, South America, North America, even Hurricane Katrina. We sent I believe 2 destroyers down there to help them after the hurricane hit them.
I signed up to serve because my grandfather had fought in World War I, my father had fought in World War II, and I felt it was the right thing to do was to serve Canada, to follow in their footsteps and the wonderful example that they had set, fighting for what they believed in and to free the occupation and aggression that was ongoing in Europe during both of those wars.
The blue beret I wear, I wore overseas in the Gaza Strip and in the Congo as a member of the United Nations peacekeeping force. And we served with numerous other countries, got along well. I can't recall ever an incident of the Canadians not getting along with other contingents. We were all there for the same reason, and we all enjoyed each other's company, and it was really a learning experience to socialize with them and understand their ways of life, and also where we were, to understand the conflict that goes on in the Middle East and the causes of war and you know, all over the world.
There is a price for freedom, and unfortunately sometimes we take that for granted. The freedom we have today, we forget about how we got there, why we got there. And so unfortunately that's the way it is around the world right now, and that's why Canada is always going on peacekeeping missions around the world, because we're being asked to assist those countries to help them get the freedom that they deserve.
The cause of war is so
Hello everybody, I'm Willow Bramwell, and I'm very happy to welcome you all today for this service of remembrance. To all those in attendance, please ensure that throughout this service you are following the social distancing guidelines that have been given to us by the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit. To those of you tuning in via the live broadcast on Rogers TV and online, thank you for partaking in our virtual ceremony. Your health is very important to us. Now, please stand, if you are able, for the playing of the national anthem led by Bob Mcgowan. Then please remain standing throughout the last post, silence, lament, and rouse.
Good morning. Sadie will play the first note of the song, and then we'll begin to sing, "O Canada." O Canada, all of us command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Branch colors, right, left, third.
You may be seated.
To your positions. Quick. Look.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here to remember today those who died for their freedom we enjoy today. And welcome to those watching at home. I'm tremendously honored to have been asked again by the Legion to act as your MC for this ceremony. This year's commemoration focuses on our sense of community in times of crisis. This year, 2020, has been dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and I would like to acknowledge and highlight the efforts of Midlanders this year during this COVID-19 crisis, as well as the efforts of Midlanders during World War II. Over the last 8 months, we have seen the community come together in ways we never imagined. Volunteers from all walks of life have been sewing face masks, offering virtual services, and delivering much-needed food and prescription medications to those isolating at home. The North Simcoe Family Health Team have been part of the Well Baby Team, helping new parents and their babies with over-the-phone appointments. Also during the pandemic, our community reach has added 2 new accessible vans to their garage and have upgraded their tracking software for a more user-friendly experience. I have to say I'm very proud of how we as a community are still finding ways to thrive during this pandemic. During World War II, Midlanders rose to the challenge by volunteering for service in the armed forces and by building ships here at Midland shipyards. Midland was responsible for building Flower-class corvettes, minesweepers, and submarine trawlers.
The high price paid to keep her free. We thank you for the raw courage of Canadians who, with their allies, entered many theaters of war to push back and defeat the enemy. We can recall many battles and bitter strife, the sacrifice of volunteer forces who were prepared to give their all. We remember today those who laid down their lives in a spirit of unselfish service. They echoed those words with their lives, the words you shared with us, Lord. Greater love has no man than this. Be with us, Lord, as we pledge ourselves anew to your service in gratitude and pride for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice to make Canada a place where the strong stoop to the needs of the elder and weak, where we encourage our youth in worthy accomplishments, where we stand to guard the rights of all citizens against tyranny and oppression. Thank you, Lord, that for our fallen comrades, the tribulations are ended and death is past. We ask in your mercy, you will bring us all to the place of belief and us into the joy of your perfect kingdom, a house not made with human hands, but eternal in the heavens. As we soldier on in the faith and loyalty of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Sandy McGilvery served at the end of the Second World War in the British Royal Air Force. I would like to invite him to the front to read a poem for us entitled Our Heritage.
Our heritage. They tell us that twilight is falling, falling on heads turning grey, that soon there'll be no remembrance of warriors long gone away. They say we romanticize killing, that war is a curse and a blight. Dear Father in heaven, they knew it. They knew it, but they still went there to fight. Why parade of ideals when the goose step was heard from behind bolted doors? They poured from this land in their thousands to keep all that hell from our shores. Perhaps it is twilight for veterans. It comes to us all with the years. At least we have rich, hallowed memories and poppies and crosses and tears. Thank you. Earl, can I have that? We have a list of the members who have passed on since we last gathered at the Legion 1 year ago. Stephen Ball, Stephen rather, Jackson Robert, Hawk Gary, James Gordanier, Ted Provincial, Barbara Gregory Crawford, Cottrell Vernal, Al Jensen, John Smith, and Dee Achert. Thank you.
It is now time for our laying of the wreaths, beginning with our representative of the Crown, Mr. Bruce Stanton. Representative of the Crown, MP, Simcoe North, Bruce Stanton. Silver Cross Mother Teresa Hamlin. Legion Representative Ron Adair. Ladies Auxiliary Representative Cindy Lockhart. For our scripture reading this morning, I'd like to kindly invite Reverend Cliff to recite John 15.
Thank you. Christ was born, Christ is dead, Christ is risen again and coming again. These are his words from the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verses 9 through 14. Just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, than one lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. This is the word of the Lord.
Cindy Lockhart is the president of the Midland Legion Ladies Auxiliary. I'd like to invite her now to read a poem entitled simply, The Poppy.
Please wear a poppy, the lady said, and held one forth, but I shook my head. Then I stopped and watched as she offered them there. Her face was old and lined with care. But beneath the scars the years had made, there remained a smile that refused to fade. A boy came whistling down the street, bouncing along on carefree feet. His smile was full of joy and fun. Lady, he said, may I have one? When she pinned it on, he turned to say, why do we wear a poppy today? The lady smiled in her wistful way and answered, this is Remembrance Day, and the poppy there is a symbol for the gallant men who died in war. And because they did, you and I are free. That's why we wear a poppy, you see. I had a boy about your size with golden hair and big blue eyes. He loved to play, to jump, and shout. Free as a bird, he would race about. As the years went by, he learned and he grew and became a man, as you will too. He was fine and strong with a boyish smile, but he seemed with us such a little while. When the war broke out, he went away, and I still remember his face that day. When he smiled at me and said, goodbye, I'll be back home soon, Mum, so please don't cry. But the war went on, and he had to stay, and all I could do was wait and pray. His letters told of the awful fight. I can see it in my dreams still at night, with the tanks and guns and cruel barbed wire, and the mines and bullets, the bombs and the fire. Till at last, the war was won. And that's why we wear a poppy sun. The small boy turned as if to go, and then he said, "Thanks, lady, I'm glad to know. That sure did sound like an awful fight. But your son, did he come back all right?" A tear rolled down each faded cheek. She shook her head, but didn't speak. I slunk away in a sort of shame, and if you were me, you would have done the same. For our thanks and giving is oft delayed. Thought our freedom was bought and thousands paid. And so when we see a poppy worn, let's reflect on the burden borne by those who gave their very all when asked to answer their country's call, that we at home in peace might live. Then wear a poppy, remember and give. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in singing the hymn, O God of Endless Ages. The words are printed on the back of your order of service. We will be led by Bob Mcgowan.
As you look at the words, they may be a little foreign to you. The hymn is based on, O God, our help in ages past. But for today, we're doing, O God of endless ages. And Sadie will give us the starting note. God of endless ages, whose will is still that. Oh, sorry, wrong tune. God of endless ages, whose will is still that we should live in peace and freedom with love of liberty. In prayer we now remember the death and dignity of those who sought to rescue this precarious legacy. With each new generation, the memory further fades deep into history's pages with tales of bygone days. So may our children's children, as rich inheritors, with us, O God, remember why freedom still endures.
At this time, I'd like to invite our invited dignitaries to say a few words, starting with the Honorable Bruce Stanton.
Thank you, Warrant Officer Willow Bramwell, and to all of our veterans and comrades of Branch 80, Royal Canadian Legion, ladies and gentlemen, all who are gathered today for this limited observance of this incredibly heartfelt tribute that we offer to Canada's fallen and to our veterans, and indeed to serving members of the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces serving in Canada today. This monument behind me, this wonderful concrete monument with the names engraved of the places and the people who served, is a constant reminder of their service and their valor to this country. But to always remember their acts and their service, it falls to us each and every year and at occasions throughout the year to recall their service to country and to our safety, to our peace and security. They have done, and those generations after continue to serve in this way to keep us safe and protect our freedoms and liberties throughout this country and across the world. It's moments like these that we take to remember that service, and even in this incredibly unusual time, we recall that the soldiers who returned from World War I faced a pandemic not dissimilar to this one, in fact, a lot more grievous. They, I think, would be proud of the way Canadians are stepping up today to take the measures that they need to do to protect their fellow citizens. It's what people here in Midland are doing today. It's what we do to step up and do our part to protect our neighbors, friends, citizens. So on this day, let us all remember their service. Let's remember the things they did to keep us safe, and remember that that becomes our duty as well, not just to remember, but to carry their story and their faith and courage forward. Lest we forget, nous n'oublions jamais.
Next, I would like to invite MPP Jill Dunlop to speak on behalf of the provincial government.
Thank you, Willow. I feel like we've seen you grow up through the ranks of the cadets and now as a member of the Legion. Thank you to the veterans who are here today and their families, to those veterans who are watching at home and being part of the services across Canada today. Difficult times lend themselves to difficult decisions, but the safety of our communities is first and foremost. While adapting our Remembrance Day ceremonies to whatever they may look like this year across Simcoe North, the coming together, even if virtually, will not take away from honoring our veterans on this historic day. Today, we remember the courage and sacrifices of the Canadian men and women who bravely defended our rights and freedoms and our great nation's independence. During this observance of remembrance, we honor those who fought and continue to fight for our ability to live in a peaceful society. We gather to pay tribute to the noble history of placing freedom and democracy above all else in service to our great country. In every battle of war, this valor was at a cost. We owe all veterans a debt that cannot be repaid. We commemorate the sacrifices of the men and women who have served our country in past conflicts, peacekeeping missions, and the armed forces currently serving around the world. May we never forget those who gave their lives for our liberties. Let us always take time to remember and pay tribute to all our veterans, peacekeepers, and active forces, and thank them for their dedication, their selfless courage, and for the freedoms that we enjoy today. On behalf of the Government of Ontario, I extend my deepest appreciation to those who selflessly and courageously answered the call to fight against tyranny and oppression. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Next, I'd like to call on Mayor Stuart Strathern to speak on behalf of the municipal government.
Well, thank you, Willow, and thank you to everybody who's turned up today to participate in this service. COVID-19, as the pandemic, is posing significant risks for people who are attending events and gatherings such as this one, Remembrance Day 2020, which is, well, going to be a little different. Those veterans that usually fill the first few rows, most are safely at home, but it's wonderful to see those who are here to celebrate. Servicemen and women that usually attend are absent. Still, since the end of World War I, the war to end all wars, we have marked the service and sacrifice of our armed forces by coming together at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So, while we can't be together with friends, neighbors, and comrades just now, we can pause to remember the valor and sacrifices of our service men and women. We can observe for a moment of silence to honor all who have fallen in the service of our country and those who return to carry on with their lives, yet never forgetting. Some carry unseen wounds that nonetheless are significant, such as PTSD. Honoring our fallen heroes in service of their country and the courage of those who still serve is vitally important. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, a conflict that saw the loss of over 80 million lives. The cenotaph behind me holds the names of those from our community that did not survive the conflict and made the ultimate sacrifice to defend our rights and freedoms, indeed, our way of life. Drive past Lakeview Cemetery and you will see over 800 crosses, row on row, illustrating just how many of our community served when needed. 600 more lay in the cemetery on Yonge Street. They upheld the right to speak freely, to associate with those that we choose to associate with, to practice our religion, to choose our leaders through democratic processes, and the right to disagree with those leaders through various means, including, ultimately, the ballot box. Yet today, we see the very reasons our service men and women placed their lives in harm's way being undermined by populist and nationalist parties preaching exclusion, vilifying minority groups, stirring up hatred, and dissent against those that are different. We see growing numbers of people and nations, all with a message of division cloaked in nationalist rhetoric. They speak against the very ideas our servicemen and women fought to uphold those many years ago, and which our armed services continue to uphold today. Today we are gathered here to honor those that put their lives at risk to protect those very freedoms that are now threatened again. We are here to remember those that have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of those freedoms. Let us never forget why they laid down their lives and put themselves in harm's way. Let us speak out against those who tread over those values that our men and women fought so hard to protect. Yet today, more than anything, let us remember with humility, gratitude, and love those of our community who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Yes, we can't be together just now, but we can pause to remember the valor and sacrifices of our servicemen and women then and now. And as importantly, the values and freedoms we cherish, fought for then and upheld now by today's servicemen and women. And as always, not just at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, but day on day on day, we will remember. Thank you to all who served this country and continue to serve this country on behalf of the residents of the town of Midland and town council. God bless you all.